Okay. Now let's get started with Wwise. So Wwise is a very different environment than Fmod or any of the game engines. So if you're using Wwise but you've never made a plugin, then some of the stuff you might already know. But if you've never made a plugin with Wwise, then my guess is that this is going to be hopefully helpful for you, because I didn't understand how they do this, and having done now 3 or 4 different, no, I should say dozens of different APIs for audio, various audio projects, this was the one that was the most confusing. Obviously you need Wwise installed, you need the Wwise launcher, okay, and then you need the Wwise SDK. And I do not remember if that came with Wwise or if I downloaded it manually or if it was through the launcher, but it's basically a folder in your Wwise distribution that says SDK. So if that's not there, then you have to get it from either this site or your launcher. And then the tool that they've created for you, unbeknownst to you as a developer, unless you find this page, is a Python script. So that means you have to install Python. And it's pretty easy on Windows. You just basically download Python and hit install. And then they claim you need these Python dependencies. I don't know if I had those installed or not, or if they came with my Python distribution, but I had no problem. I think I'm on Python like 3.16 or 12, or I have no idea, but I'm well above the minimum that they have here, 3.7, and I've used Python many times and it was fine. So I didn't have to do this part, but if you wanted to use this part, you also have to install pip. So you need Python, you need pip, which is a Python package handler. So just to get started, you need all of that stuff. And I'm not going to go through that with you, because I'm kind of assuming by watching these tutorials, you know a little bit about development on that side of things. But if you don't, reach out to me and maybe I can go more in detail. The main thing is you're going to find is you're going to be using this script called wp.py, and that's a Python script. And that Python script will basically be the only thing that you use for the most part the entire time of your developing the plugin. That script lives in this place. So it's your Wwise distribution in your scripts build plugins folder. And there it is right there. Okay, so I'll show you how I do that. You're going to have to run it through the command line or the terminal, depending on if you're Mac OS or Windows. So the first thing you're going to do is create your plugin. And this is the page that's referencing how to do that here. And you know, this little thing here, by the way, you have to define that if it doesn't already exist. So if you wanted to create an environment variable called Wwise root, that's fine. That way you can always change it to a new version. But honestly, unless you're writing plugins a lot, I don't think that that's something that you really need to bother with. Okay, so just make sure you're in the right folder where you want the plugin to be created. Now let's go to that script. And what we're going to do here is you type in Python. So that runs the Python script reader. You drag the wp.py script into your window, and this will work also on Mac. It will copy the path of that file. So this is basically saying execute this Python script, and you need the complete path. And then you're going to give it arguments, which the argument is going to be new. And this new argument will run through the script and probably run other scripts that are part of the package. So just so you kind of know what's going on. Now it's going to ask you what type of plugin. And I'm not a super user on Wwise, so I don't necessarily know all the jargon, but the type of plugin that I wanted to create was like a generator So we're going to do a rain generator. That's the example that I have. So that's called a source plugin. If you're doing something like EQ, compressor, reverb, that's an effect. And the others I don't know, nor do I care to know. Source is not a valid type. Please choose one of source, metadata. Interesting. Did I use a space? I must have used a space. All right, project name. All right, we're just going to do PD demo. Display name. Okay, that's fine. Author, Dr. Essler. Description, a demo of PD++ in Wwise. Okay, and then it says this is everything it's going to create. And is this okay? Yes. So you just hit enter. All right, so it did it. So now we can go looking for that. Let's go hunting for it real quick. All right, so that's the one that I created. Is it this one? PD demo, there it is. Okay, so it creates a couple of essentials. So it creates the demo plugin, which defines the plugin. It creates the sound engine side. So this is the side that would interface with the software. And this has a couple of aspects to it. You have the source. This is where you're going to put all your DSP. And you have the parameters. This is where you're going to define your parameters and what they do. Okay, so it starts to get really confusing from here. So I'm going to try to simplify as much as I can, and we'll get to each of these details. Why are there so many files for a simple plugin? Right, we're going to get into that. All right, now you've created the folder, but you're not ready to start working yet. You have to configure it with the premake command. Now, what does premake mean? Well, it's supposed to make you a premake Lua file, which is this thing here, which I don't know why they use another language. They use Python and then they're using Lua and C++. So I don't know anything about Lua. So I just assume that Lua knows what it's doing. I didn't have to do anything, but it makes this thing, and this is more or less customized based on what you told that new generator what you were doing. And so it customized the Lua file. And I looked at it, and we'll open it up real quick, and it's like, it's not terribly difficult to understand Lua. It's just, it's basically, why didn't they do this in Python? I don't know. So you can customize it. If you know what you're doing at a certain point, you can customize this to include different things and help you with your project when you're pre-making. But all right, enough of that. Let's pre-make. And we're going to pre-make for authoring, because in Wwise, authoring apparently means working in the software itself. So if you want your plugin to work in the software, you have to have authoring, and it will compile it for the platform you're working on, not for, like, if you're working on Mac, it's not going to compile for Windows. So it's automatically going to do that. And then you also have to pre-make, I believe, for any other platform you're going to be delivering this project to, so that you have a build file that will also make it for that. So for example, if you're just distributing it for Windows, like on Steam, then you have to make a Windows version. If you're doing it on the PS5, you have to make a PS5 version, which actually is not, oh yeah, it's one of the options here. So that you have to have a plugin for every single format, and that's pretty standard for every plugin format. That usually a lot of, like, Unreal will automatically do that when you compile, if you're using like blueprints or Metasounds, and Unity the same. Although Unity doesn't always work well with all platforms right out of the box. You got to kind of work at it a little bit, but that's with any platform. Okay, so we have to then do the pre-make, which will make all of the build files that are gonna that we're gonna need later on. So I'm just gonna basically now change this to pre-make authoring. And I think that's all we need. So it's the same file. Now pre-make will run a new, another Python file on the background, and it will do all the stuff that it's going to do. Oh yeah, I've got to change into the PD demo. Okay. Did I get that right? Okay. Now it should work. So it's going to do a bunch of stuff. If we go back to that file, now we see that there are some solutions for Visual Studio. And I assume if you're on Mac, it's going to do an Xcode project, but I didn't do this on Mac. So now we should be able to build our plugin, and it will deliver it to the proper folders on your system, and then you can open up Wwise and it should work. So we're not going to build yet. What we're going to do now is go to my demo, which I did with the rain demo. So I called it PD rain. First off, let's go through the files. So we have this PD source file. This is the main thing you're going to work with. This is where you're going to call all of your anything from PD++. So if you've already worked with the other files, all I did was just link to the files in the PD Unreal example on GitHub. So let me show you where you can just download this folder right away, and you can work with it immediately. So it's under PD Unreal, Wwise, and I have a brief description of the stuff that I'm going to show you next. And inside of it, all I did was I linked to the private and public folders here, which have everything essential from PD++, and as well as my customized noise plugins, like, sorry, those were under private, like Rain. It's just called Rain. Okay, so this is Rain. It's the same Rain from every example, and it's the one taken from Andy Farnell's book. Okay, so under this PD source, the main thing that we're going to focus on is the execute. This is its DSP loop. So let's get that close. So since I already defined Rain, all you have to do is make an instance of Rain. Did we do that here? Yeah. So we made an instance of Rain, and we can do it on the stack. I also did an oscillator just to, when I was first checking this, so you don't have to make that. So just make an instance of your Rain generator, and then more or less you go to the execute method, and this is where you would set all of your ranges for the different parameters of Rain. And these we're going to get in a minute from our real-time parameters. And then you just basically write it to this macro called akfloat to sample type. And this is what I got wrong the first time. I didn't know you had to do that. You have to, it's some sort of wrapper that makes your numbers into something that Wwise likes, which is fine. That's not a big deal. And that's it. So I would stick all of your DSP into your Rain class, or your whatever your plugin class that you're doing, and then just right here, and not try to do a bunch of stuff inside of execute. Then we need to get our parameters. So that's the next thing, and the parameters have to be set up first in your source parameters.h file. Okay, so first thing you need are parameter IDs. So you're going to basically create a parameter ID kind of like static variable, and then you're going to update your number of parameters. This is just used later, so it knows how many parameters to write to memory. So just going to basically make your list here, and then you're going to define them here. I was just always dealing with numbers, so I don't know if there are any other types of parameters other than numbers. There might be, but it's just an AK real 32, which is, yeah, some sort of float. It's just a float, 32-bit float. No big deal. All right. You can also write non-RTPC parameters. Those are parameters used internally that would not show up in the Wwise authoring side of things. So not in the actual software. And then that's it. That's all you have to do on this one. So then you would go to your C++ file. And what did we do here? All right, so this is where we initialize them under the init block of code. So you just set the parameters here. Every source plugin has to have a duration. I don't exactly know how that gets used. I just know that if it was at 0, I wouldn't hear anything. So I had to set it to some height. If you just want it continuously running, I had to set it to like 1,000 and it worked. Then under your set params block, okay, you've basically, I believe this is so when it gets read from a sound bank, it can be in memory under this block, I guess parameter block. All right, and then this is your set parameters. I believe this is where the parameter will get handled by the editor or possibly the sound bank. Not sure. It doesn't really matter. You have to set it up. So this is where your parameter IDs come in, and it's just a basic switch. And then you just wrap it in this RT. So all the parameters get written to that struct, which is called RTPC, and then you just basically set it based on the whatever value it's asking for, and it's just going to be a number in this case. So this voided pointer gets converted into, sorry, that's not it. Yeah, the voided pointer gets converted into a real float, and then this is the parameter ID number that gets written in here. And then if anything else that gets read into it, it will throw this invalid parameter error. So that's it for source params. Then we need to go to the plugin side of things, and this is the getter for the bank parameters, I assume. And you just have to basically copy paste and name your parameter here, the string that you're setting for the parameter, and that's it. And just make sure the strings match. Everything else has been done for you by the pre-make or the new generator. Then you can go into your, I don't think we had to do anything in our source. This was already done. So the parameters come as a big block of memory. Didn't have to do anything there. It's just a matter of when we want to change the parameters, what happens to the DSP. And so there is this getter for duration, and you can set the duration. This is based on seconds, I believe. So you can set the duration to whatever you want. I added another function. This is the same map function I've used in other examples to map our parameters to a range. And then they just show up as this block of memory, p params, and then it's referencing that struct, and then the member of that struct, right? And so it does that automatically as long as you have this level of code, because this is something that we've defined in our H file. And then it's just a matter of doing the same thing we did in both Unreal and Fmod, is to set our ranges so that when we move our numbers and dials that we get what we're looking for, and then just update your DSP parameters, and then once the block is done, it'll update it, and then you'll get a new, you'll hear the change in the next block. And that's it. Everything else is boilerplate code that is there for you, and everything else that I found was unnecessary to look at. So when we did our demo, right, we have this factory and this shared. Didn't have to touch that. Oh, right. That's the other thing I have to show you is they've added another layer that you have to deal with. So when I was showing you these parameters, these things here, not only do you have to define them here and down there and over there and in here, you also have to do it in a XML file here. And that XML file is like for the display in Wwise. So technically it would work. No, it wouldn't work because you have to write. Nah, it wouldn't work. So basically, you just copy I copied the duration property and just added 2 more, and then just changed the names and saved it, built it again, and then it copies the XML file over to this folder. So you get the XML. This describes the interface, and the DLL. This is the backend with access to your parameters, memory, and the DSP loop. Okay, so that's what's going to work now in the authoring client. So let's go ahead and now build this. This is our demo, by the way. It's not what I just showed you. So but it's basically the same thing. So you've done all of your build, you've done all of your coding. So now we're going to follow this template here. Go back to this statement here and change it to, well, let's make it so we can see the build statement. Okay, so now we're saying, all right, now build. And this is the, basically what type of build are you building for? We're going to do a release build. What type of architecture? And since I'm x64, that's what I'm going to put. I believe there's a list of architectures. So if you're on Mac, you're going to want probably ARM or ARM64. I wonder, that is a great question, Dr. Essler. What are the different architectures? I believe you could do help too, and it should tell you the architectures. I don't know that off the bat. So just if you are on Mac, keep that in mind. You're going to have to, this is going to be a little different. This is the type of Visual Studio compiler you're using. So we want 170. That's the more recent one. And then finally, what are you actually building for? And this is the authoring platform. So we're just going to hit compile. Since we haven't done anything, it's going to probably be fine. Look at that. It's not fine. Error, plugin. Oh, I remember this error. So I'm glad this happened. So this is an error that comes with, no, it comes under Wwise plugin, and it's under this folder, and it's this plugin MFC Windows is not a member of AKWise plugin, which is absolutely true. It is not. I've gone to this file and it is not there. So a couple things, I think it's referenced here. Yeah. What did I do? You just commented out. I just commented out to see if it would work, and I left it in there so when this happened, I wouldn't forget. Boom. And now we should be ready to build again, and everything should be fine. Yay! It worked. So now it should be installed in our plugins folder. So this is fun. All right, so if you go to the Wwise release, there's this authoring folder, and then you're under x64 because that's our architecture, and then it's called release. So you remember we did that in our little build script, right? It's basically, that's everything that's now being compiled and then put into this folder. And since we're dealing with a plugin, it's in here, and it should be called PD demo. So if we were to load PD demo, it would do nothing at all. Okay, it has nothing. So we can check that out too. And I'll also show you what I did with Rain. So you would go to make a new project, you'd open it in Wwise, and I think I already have it open. So let's just go to there, new child, and then we want a PD rain. Look at that. Oh, right. We got to set the duration. Not a number. What are you talking about? You are a number. Brilliant. So now it's playing, but I can't hear it. There we go. My speaker's shut off. Okay, so we can bring down the intensity and the volume. So if you want like light rain, heavy rain, so that's far field and near field rain. Okay, that's it. So that's that. Now you have to get in all of your ducks in a row and do it yourself. Let's go back real quick to this here. Those are the key things that I remember being really complicated. When I looked at this, like adding a target platform, some of this didn't work. So like the pre-makes worked. So remember, you have to pre-make any other platforms you're building your game to. So if you're building it for the PS5, you have to pre-make PS5, etc. And then you have to build for PS5 and build for authoring. So you have to remember you need a plugin for every single piece of hardware that this is going to. And then you still have to test it on that hardware. And I'm not set up to do that. The one thing that did not work was documentation. That didn't work. And if you forgot to do a pre-make, the build didn't work. And it didn't tell you that you forgot to do the pre-make. So I just did build Windows, and then it like said, no, I did build authoring, but I'd never done pre-make authoring. So it was just kind of like, it built it, but then it didn't tell me. Anyway. So I wasn't getting it to show up in Wwise, and I was like, what's going on? So none of this made any sense until I really dug into it a lot deeper. And then if you want more understanding of the back end, the sound and writing the sound engine part of a plugin, and then we were doing a source effect. So that is, where is that? Here. So they do give you some insider stuff about how all of this works if you need that. But like I said, if you're just using PD++, you can do everything outside of the Wwise environment, testing your stuff in either processing and then converting it over to C++, or testing it in C++ and then bringing it into Wwise. So it really just depends on how you like to work. And I will have another tutorial where I show you how you could start in a really simple IDE like processing and get things working very fast, and then how you could then work in one of these 4 different areas, either in the middleware or the 2 main game engines that we talked about, or anywhere else for that matter. And then just basically taking your one instance of your class and then running it through the audio loop that's provided for you by the API. Okay, well that's all I have on middleware. I'm exhausted. This has been a lot to show you, and hopefully it was helpful. Go to my GitHub and you can find everything I did there as well. Hope you had fun with this. I'm out. I'll see you next time.